Welcome to the Three Things You Didn't Know. We'll be discussing the 1960s to the 1990s. Three separate events, the counterculture, Woodstock, and the 1990s LA riots show the public opinion of the government.
What do you consider to be the counterculture in the 1960s?
I don't know, hippies and bugs.
What do you consider to be the counterculture in the 1960s?
Oh, Molly just called?
Margaret Mead, since you were a part of the counterculture, what is one statement to define your ideas during that time?
Never doubt that a small group of committed, thoughtful individuals can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that has.
This counterculture movement was a reaction against the conservative social norms of the 1950s, the political conservatism of the Cold War period, and the U.S. government's extensive military intervention in Vietnam. Rebellious youth formats contributed, some involving people who had never been college students. The hippies created their own social groups, listened to psychedelic rock, embraced the sexual revolution, and used drugs such as marijuana, LSD, and magic mushrooms to explore other states of consciousness.
Well, there was only one thing I could say about the war in Vietnam. There's only one thing I can say about the war in Vietnam. In Vietnam,
Help me get any of this damn pointer! Why are they doing this?
Forrest Gump, Forrest is about to give a speech on his feelings about the war in Vietnam when the speaker malfunctions and his speech is never heard. This actually happened during the congregation in Washington, D.C., where the speaker malfunctioned when a soldier was about to give his opinions on the war. He then embraced Jenny, which was representing the counterculture by going against the Vietnam War, and shown dressing in typical hippie attire. People believed that government officials were behind this event as they did not want the truth about the war in Vietnam to get out to the rest of the population.
The counterculture shows the public opinion in the view of the government because it shows that people were against the decision of the government concerning Vietnam. Therefore, they congregated in a group who showcased their own ideas and concepts instead of trusting what the government was doing and told them. Have you heard of Woodstock or know anything about it?
Yo, the place where they sell wood like a convention.
Have you heard of Woodstock or know anything about it?
A city in California that sells lumber?
John Sinclair, what do you remember from your times at Woodstock?
Our program is Cultural Revolution through total assault on culture, which makes use of every tool, every energy, every media we can get our collective hands on. Our culture, our art, our music, our books, our posters, our clothing, the way our hair grows long, the way we smoke dope and eat and sleep, it's all one message. The message is freedom.
The Woodstock Festival was a 3-day concert which rolled into a 4th day that involved lots of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, plus a lot of mud. The Woodstock Music Festival of 1969 has become an icon of the 1960s hippie counterculture. Acts from all around the world met at Max Yasgur's farm in Bethel, New York on August 15th through 18th, 1969 for a celebration of peace and music. What began as a paid event drew so many viewers from across the world that the fences were torn down and it became a free concert open to the public. 500,000 youthful individuals gathered peacefully at Woodstock 1969, creating the largest gathering of human beings in one place in history. Woodstock defined an entire generation and its effect on music and American culture that can still be felt today. This event was so popular that there was a movie made about it called Taking Woodstock. This was made in 2009 and it is about a man working at his parents' motel in the Catskills. He sets in motion the generation-defining concert in the summer of 1969.
Woodstock showed the public opinion on the government because this was an event where many people congregated to form their own ideas and strike against the government's choices concerning Vietnam. Many wrote songs and made art to share their ideas. These artists were presented at Woodstock. The musicians brought the counterculture ideals into the public eye through radio, television, and extensive touring. The opinion on the government was negative because there were so many people who were trying to change their decisions and introducing new social groups. What do you know about the LA riots?
Probably something with drums.
What do you know about the LA riots?
The Kardashians got.
Lomas, what do you think about the LA riots?
The LA riots represented a population that involved all different kinds of ethnic groups, that involved more a population unrest than a gang unrest. It wasn't entirely a gang issue as much as people assume.
The early 1990s were a difficult time, especially for California. California was quickly changing. During the 1980s, many immigrants began to move in, and the crack epidemic had a terrible effect on the area. Also, 1991 and 1992 were the worst on record for crime. In 1992, the year of the riots, the murder rate was the highest in LA history. There were 1,077 murders. Many of these deaths came from gang violence in South Central. The beating of Rodney King occurred on March 3, 1991. This is what the LA riots are most known for. He was severely beaten by the police. The police attempted to pull him over in Lakeview Terrace in the San Fernando Valley after he was caught speeding at 110 miles per hour. He led the police on a short pursuit because he knew being pulled over would violate his parole for a prior robbery. The police claimed that he was resisting arrest once he was pulled over. They claimed that they believed he was on drugs, although he was not. The police proceeded to beat Rodney King severely for about 15 minutes, resulting in skull fractures, broken bones and teeth, and permanent brain damage. The police did not know that they were being filmed for most of the beating. The people that filmed it brought it to the media, and the film was repeatedly shown on TV. Police brutality and racial profiling had been a problem for some in LA, but this was the first time it was caught on tape. The 4 main officers involved were brought to trial on charges of using excessive force. Their trials moved to Semi Valley. The 4 white officers represented for many people of color everything that was wrong with the police. In the end, 53 people were killed. Most all were rioters or innocent victims. Over $1 billion in damages were done. People rioted because of the built-up anger and frustration of recent events. The riots were not just a collection of random acts. People were speaking out against oppression, against being held down for so long. The only way they were finally heard was through the extreme acts that came to be called the LA.
Many people felt so enraged about these riots that they wrote songs depicting them. Some of these artists include Tupac, Sublime, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Ben Harper, and David Bowie. In Ben Harper's Like a King, he sang, "Well, Martin's dream has become Rodney's worst nightmare. Can't walk the streets to them, we are fair game. Our lives don't mean a thing. Like a king, like a king, like a king. Rodney King, Rodney King, Rodney King. Like a king, like a king, like a king. I wish you could help us, Dr. King." This song portrayed how King's dream and legacy was not being fulfilled, and many African Americans felt that they were being deprived of their rights.
The LA riots showed how African Americans were being deprived of their rights. This is why many popular artists wrote songs showcasing the LA riots to show Americans and the government how they felt about the brutality of these riots. People rioted because of their frustration and anger towards the government's actions or the government's inaction. People were speaking out with oppression seen through these riots and